Hello, my name is Amy Updike, and I am currently a DNP student with Pennsylvania State University World Campus. Today I will be discussing the social learning theory by Albert Bandura. We will discuss some of the background of the theory, such as its origins and major concepts, some theory analysis and evaluation of the theory related to nursing, and finally some review of some articles supporting this theory and how it can be utilized not only in nursing, but in the workplace and the healthcare environment and patient care. In 1961, behaviorist Albert Bandura wanted to focus on how people learn from one another. He hypothesized that environment, cognitive factors, and behavior interacts with one another. He believed that many behaviors that people exhibit have been acquired through observations and modeling of others. It is considered a middle-range theory and helped derive other theories such as self-efficacy in nursing theory in 2002 by Lenz and Shortridge-Baggett, and the health promotion model in 2011 by Pender, Murdaugh, and Parsons. The social learning theory derived from the idea of reciprocal determinism and concern with the social influences that affect learning. It consisted of three key concepts: vicarious learning, personal and cognitive factors, and behavioral factors. We will discuss in more detail these concepts in a couple of slides. The context for use is described in particular in education, which we will also talk more about shortly. The concepts are adequately defined. Once they are broken down further, it is easy to see how the three key concepts interact and do affect one's overall behavior. As defined by McEwen and Wills in 2014, when a concept gives meaning to a term in a context of the theory and permits the reader to access the validity of the definition, it is considered theoretically defined, which is the case in this circumstances with the concepts. At first, I believe the linkages are not obvious. However, once you further define each concept, as shown in the diagram on the next slide, the links become much clearer and the concepts become better defined and evident. Again, in the beginning, this may make the theory appear not organized, but the associated diagrams will hopefully help explain their interactions. I do not believe that the theory and outcomes are straightforward, as it can change depending on the individual. The overall concept may be similar, but how one learns may vary based on their individual needs, baseline, and unique capabilities and exposures to each element or concept. Here are two diagrams that better explain the concepts as well as the reoccurring important factors in social learning, or observational learning. On the left-hand side, we see a diagram of the three key concepts that influence or determine human behavior. First are environmental factors. These include your social norms, access in the community, and influence on others, and the ability to change one's environment. Next are cognitive factors, or one's personal factors. These include one's personal knowledge, expectations, and attitudes. Finally are behavioral factors. These include one's skills, practice, and self-efficacy. These three factors are a continuous cycle and constantly work hand in hand with one another. They can also affect one another, which is what will cause the overall variance in the outcomes of learning. On the right-hand side is a flowchart that describes the four basic principles that affect social learning. These include attention, which is paying attention to the model or subject being observed in a condition for learning; retention, which is remembering what the model did in a condition for imitating the model's behaviors later; reproduction, which is when people must have the capacity or skills for imitating the behavior; and motivation, which is when people must be motivated to imitate the behavior. Hopefully, this helps clarify some concepts of the theory and also how the outcomes will vary based on each individual and their needs, experiences, or personal capabilities. I believe the theory does fit with current nursing standards and/or interventions. It is best used in education as it focuses on how someone learns. However, I do believe it can be used not just as in an environment like nursing schools, but also better conceptualizing as managers and how our staff learns, or as nurses and how our patients learn and apply it at the bedside. Despite language or cultural or environmental settings, I believe this theory is relevant socially and across all cultures. It is very much a case of learning or becoming a product of our environment. As just mentioned, I believe this theory can be used across many aspects of nursing and nursing management. It is important to understand how people learn, not only to perform their jobs correctly, but also how people gain knowledge in learning environments, such as nursing schools, and how our patients will be able to get and retain information such as discharge instructions and reasons to return to the emergency department or perform self-wound care, for example. When looking at the application of this theory, it is found to be mainly in the education setting. However, Bandura's Bobo doll experiment is a very popular case study that explores this theory. Also, applications in the workplace and in the academic environment can be researched. A common finding is that this theory is primarily correlated with the adolescent or young adult population. We will explore this further as we discuss a couple related articles. First is the Bobo doll experiment. The article published by Saul McLeod explains the experiment conducted by Bandura, Ross, and Ross in 1961. The purpose of the experiment was to investigate if social behaviors can be acquired by observation or imitation. The study sampled 36 boys and 36 girls aged 3 to 6 from the Stanford University Nursery School. They used a matched pairs design and divided the group into 3 groups of 24 kids: the aggressive, non-aggressive, and control condition groups. They performed 3 stages of the experiment. Stage 1 was modeling. In this stage, children were individually shown into a room containing toys and played with potato prints and pictures for 10 minutes, while a model child either behaved aggressively towards a toy called the Bobo doll or played with it quietly and subdued, while the other group had no model in their room. Stage 2, the aggression arousal stage, involved all the children being exposed to mild aggression arousal, and each child was taken to a room with nice toys. As soon as the child began to play with some of the toys, the experimenter took them away and said that they were special toys and not for them but for other children. Finally, in stage 3, the test delayed imitation. Children were brought into a room with some aggressive and non-aggressive toys. Their behaviors were observed for 20 minutes and were recorded. The results of the experiment supported Bandura's social learning theory. That is, that children learn social behaviors such as aggression through the process of observation, learning, or that of watching behaviors of another person. Steve Wheeler and Teach Taught in 2004 published an article explaining the social learning theory and how it relates to education. He explained the 4 formulated principles of social learning. The first, attention, is that we cannot learn if we are not focused on a task. We are more likely to pay attention if it is novel or different in some way. Next is retention. We learn by internalizing in our memories. We will recall that information later when we are required to respond to a situation that is similar. Third, reproduction is when we are reproduced previously to learned information such as behaviors, skills, or knowledge when it is required. And finally is motivation. We need to be motivated to do anything. Often that motivation originated from our observation of someone else being rewarded or punished for something that they have done or said, usually motivating us to later do something again or avoid it in the same way. These principles can be used as a powerful method in education. For example, if children see positive consequences, they are more likely to repeat that behavior themselves. Students are found to be more motivated to pay attention if they see others around them also paying attention. And finally, it is also important to encourage students to develop their own individual efficacy. Finally, Aaron Schreiner in 2007 published an article entitled How to Apply the Social Learning Theory in the Workplace. This article explains how the social learning theory can be applied to the workplace and be more effective with guiding employees' behaviors and promote the behaviors needed to make a successful business. 4 factors or steps needed to occur in order for this to happen. Step 1 was model the behavior for the employee. Instead of telling the employee what you want them to do, the leader should be physically modeling the behavior, acting out the process in which they hope that those under them will follow. The next step is the leader should encourage the employees to imitate their behaviors. They can do this by directly telling them to model the behavior or by rewarding them for modeling the behavior. Next, the leader should continuously watch the employees to observe for the behaviors. Leaders should step in periodically to reinforce good behaviors as well as correct behaviors if needed. Finally, when employees fail to follow the behaviors that the leaders are trying to endorse, there must be consequences. These consequences can vary based on the amount of deviation from the desired behavior. These 4 steps will help leaders become more successful with promoting a strong and successful workplace and business. The current utility is based on Bandura's 1961 experiment. While this is still relevant and includes the 3 basic concepts of vicarious learning, personal and cognitive factors, and behavioral factors, it is becoming outdated. The future utility in research can be done by broadening to different subpopulations and expand on different learning behaviors based on an individual's needs and capabilities. It can focus on different age groups, socioeconomic backgrounds, and cognitive impairments. All these will help benefit future methods of learning, teaching, and education. At this point, research can be conducted in different subcategories. For example, a researcher can compare and contrast age, ethnic, and geographical statistics in nursing programs across the country in regards to their different learning techniques, preferences, and barriers, for example. Future development in the theory would be how society has changed its social norms and what is accepted in the population. Some things that have changed include your language, such as slang, and environmental exposure, such as where is the research taking place, like in a deployed environment or a third world country. While there is always room for further development, this theory is ready for evidence-based practice and can be utilized, as it already is in multiple settings such as the academic institutions, the workplace, and bedside nursing and patient education. In summary, Bandura's social learning theory has shed great light onto how behavior is learned. It is especially useful in nursing education and can directly relate to current and future nursing theories and management. As leaders, it is imperative to be aware of our subordinates and our patients. By keeping the idea that those around us are always looking to the leader for the right thing to do, we must model what we want our subordinates to do. This will ultimately create a positive, safe work environment and healthcare setting for all those involved. And here are my references. I want to thank you very much for your time, and remember that someone is always watching.